Hey, what's up everybody? Today I'm going to be showcasing and giving you a guide on the spider build. This is a high melee damage and lifesteal build. It performs very well at the highest apocalypse difficulty and it's very fun to play around with. I've been getting a lot of comments under my videos asking what build I'm using in the background gameplay, and I've been using this build a lot just because I've wanted to switch things up and I like using new builds and trying new things out. And as this build came together, it ended up being really good and at the same time looking amazing and having some really cool animations to it. So that's what made me really like it. This is the 5th build from my Minecraft Dungeons Best Builds series. Now let's get into a quick overview of the build where I'll talk about what the pace and the playstyle feels like with it, and then I'll get into a detailed breakdown where I will explain all of the items that you need and then also the enchantments that you need for these items. The spider build is a very high damage build that focuses on gaining damage from the growing staff, with its damage being increased even more with percentage damage increasing enchantments. And then the build gains a lot of lifesteal from the spider armor that you have equipped, so whenever you attack enemies you are always gaining health back and that sustains you very well. Then we have the soul aspect to this build where we are utilizing the anima conduit enchantment on a soul ranged weapon, so that way whenever we gather souls we are healing, and alongside that soul item we are also using the harvester, which gives us not only bursty damage but also bursty healing, because whenever we deal damage with the harvester we heal because of our spider armor lifesteal aura. The movement speed of this build is increased because of the death cap mushroom artifact. Our attack speed is really fast because we do have that death cap mushroom, and on top of that the melee attack speed increase from our spider armor. Now this attack speed is not as fast as the fighter's bindings, but because the growing staff is a very high damage combo based weapon, when we add a lot of attack speed to it, it becomes really powerful. The build does very well at clearing mobs, and with bosses it is exceptional. It's even more powerful at clearing bosses than my soul stealer build was. There are some variations you can make to this build as well that will either increase how fast you can defeat mobs or how fast you can move, and I'll be discussing those as we go along with the breakdown. Alright, so getting into a breakdown, the first slot that I want to talk about is the melee weapon slot. Here we have the growing staff. This could also be supplemented with the battle staff of terror or even the base version of the battle staff. However, in the case of these two unique variants of the battle staff, they do actually offer pretty nice perks, so they will give you a good DPS boost. Now with this weapon your damage ramps up at the end of your stylish combos. So with that, when you're fighting bosses and you're able to keep on attacking for a long amount of time, then you can really get some high numbers with your hits. But when you're just attacking mobs, usually you're not going to get to ramp up to the highest numbers. However, you still will be able to reach and even average very high damage as is. You can one-shot basic mobs, and the medium health and high health mobs are taken down very quickly thanks to the battle staff. You also have a lot of range with this weapon, so you definitely want to be utilizing that so that you can keep attacking. With other weapons, even like the whirlwind axe, the range on that weapon is not as great as it is on this weapon, so sometimes you can be getting hit by mobs while you're trying to attack them with that weapon, while with this one you can actually manage to stay from a range pretty easily and keep up your attacks without getting interrupted. So that makes this weapon amazing. Now the enchantments that we need to get for our growing staff actually matter a lot because they will end up increasing our damage by an incredible amount. Since our weapon already has a very high base attack damage, when we can add percentage boost to that attack damage, that ends up increasing our damage by a huge amount, more than with any other weapon, so we are using that to our advantage. Now for the absolute best in slot, what you're gonna want is to get the growing staff, which already has the tier 1 committed enchantment built into it. Then for your first enchantment, and the most important one, you're gonna want to get critical hit, because that's going to give you a 20% chance to triple the hit of one of your attacks. As is, critical hit will increase your damage by a lot with this weapon, but then when you are fighting bosses and if you put on the Gong of Weakening, then critical hit will end up just increasing your damage by insane amounts. Then the next two enchantments that you're going to want are just going to be sharpness enchantments. Each of these are going to increase the weapon's damage by 33%, meaning that with two of them you're going to get a 66% boost to your melee damage, and that gives you an increase to your damage and also your your consistency. Now in the case of where, let's say you get the Battle Staff of Terror, then the enchantments are going to change a bit because you have the Explosion enchantment already on your weapon now instead of the Committed enchantment, and now you can get Committed as one of the enchantments. Whatever the enchantment that a weapon already has on it as its perk is, you cannot end up getting that from the enchantments. So that's why we couldn't get another Committed enchantment on our growing staff. But with the Battle Staff of Terror, you still want to get critical hit first up, then you want to get Committed, which is going to increase your damage to wounded enemies, and then you want to get Sharpness. The growing staff is going to have better single target damage while it's still going to have great AoE damage. And with the Battle Staff of Terror, you're going to have slightly less single target damage, but some more AoE damage. So really, it doesn't exactly matter which one you pick. Both are going to be great. Me personally, I have the Exploding enchantment on my growing staff just because that was the only good option that I had for that slot. And it's been doing really well for me. It's been helping me clear up big packs of mobs. Now the reason why it's not so urgent to get the Explosion enchantment for this build is because we do have the Harvester enchantment, which is very useful for AoE. Mainly you want to get a Battle Staff that has critical hit on it and Committed as well, and then the third enchantment can be either Sharpness or Exploding, just based on what your playstyle is more like. If you fight every single mob pack that you see, then the Exploding variant will be better for you. So you could either get this from a Battle Staff of Terror, even you could put it on a growing staff after you have critical hit on it, or you could even put it on a regular Battle Staff. If you can get perfect rolls where you have critical hit, Committed, and Exploding on it, then it will be a very good weapon that performs pretty much just the same as the growing staff and Battle Staff of Terror could. So there is definitely flexibility on your melee weapon and the enchantment slots, as long as it is still of the Battle Staff weapon type and you do have some percentage increases to your damage. That about does it for our melee slot, and now it's time to move on to our armor, where we find the Spider Armor, which is what this build is named after, not only because the Spider Armor looks really cool, but also because the Spider Armor is a key factor in this build. The Spider Armor increases your melee attack speed, and it also gives you Lifesteal aura. By default, the Battle Staff is a very slow weapon, and if we would just be fighting with a slow attacking weapon, it would be difficult to clear mobs sometimes because mobs are always trying to hit you. So if you attack slowly, they'll be able to get a lot of hits on you before you get hits on them. But with the increased attack speed from this and the Deathcap Mushroom, we are able to keep up consistent quick hits that make sure that we are able to stay at a range from our enemies and not take hits. Then the Lifesteal aura gives us Lifesteal, and it is extremely important to your survivability. Without this, you would just not be able to survive in every single case, because whenever you run into enchanted mobs that have some really strong enchantments on them, without this you wouldn't be able to sustain yourself and you would definitely end up dying. So it's really important to have the Lifesteal aura. And again, don't forget that your artifact damage also heals you up when you have this aura on, so it's very useful. Now the enchantments for your armor definitely matter, mainly because of the Cowardice enchantment. This is going to be your first priority, and it gives you a 40% increase to your melee damage and range damage when you are at max HP. That damage boost comes in big, and we are able to keep it up for a lot of the time since we do have a very long range with the Battle Staff. For the other two enchantments, you really want 2 cooldown enchantments if possible, just because this makes sure that you are able to keep up all the artifacts you want, and it gives you a lot of flexibility with swapping in artifacts. Say you want to put in Boots of Swiftness, that lets you activate them a lot more. Any artifact really. Definitely the Deathcap Mushrooms that we have equipped, cooldown helps us keep the effect up the whole time. Now if you can't get 2 cooldown enchantments, which would be understandable, Protection is always great. That just helps you keep your health up. Final Shout can also be good, and you can maybe form your build more around that. Really, if you can't get the 2 cooldown enchantments, then you just gotta get whatever the next best thing is, but there isn't anything exactly that you would need at that point. Now moving on to our bow slot, we have the Feral Soul Crossbow. This is a soul crossbow that has +2 soul gathering on it. We don't actually use our ranged weapon with this build, so the reason why we're using this specific soul crossbow is because it is the only ranged weapon to have +2 soul gathering on it. and that just gives us more souls so that we can activate our harvester artifact more often and deal more damage and heal more. Now with that, you also need to have the anima conduit enchantment on it, which heals you every time you gather a soul. If you get a feral soul crossbow but it does not have the anima conduit enchantment on it, then you're just gonna have to throw that feral soul crossbow away and try to get any other possible soul bow that does have the anima conduit enchantment on it. Even if it just has +1 soul gathering instead of +2 soul gathering, any other soul bow will be better in that case, just because the anima conduit enchantment is so powerful. And although you won't be able to activate your harvester as much by a bit, you will gain a lot of sustainability, and this will be essential in keeping you up when you are fighting through big mob packs. Finally, to get to our artifact slot, we have 3 artifacts, and then we have multiple different options for swap-ins for our artifacts. So let me explain the essential items. You need to have the death cap mushrooms. These keep you up, these hold the build together because of their fast attack speed. These let you attack a lot more, which lets you heal a lot more. And I mean, without the death cap mushrooms, you will just be dying a lot. So you need to have these in the build. You cannot skip out on them. With our 3rd slot, that is where we have flexibility. The main artifact to use would be the harvester, just because this gives us some very useful bursty healing and damage. The harvester can counteract the very high damage that big packs of mobs can output all within a split second. This ensures that after your health is chunked down, you are able to instantly heal back up to full. You want to be using the harvester pretty sparingly because we're not getting a crazy amount of souls as we would if we had a full soul build. You just want to save this for those situations where you know you are going to be taking a lot of quick damage, or also where there are just a lot of mobs in one area. And I mean, in some cases, if you do have a overflowing soul bar, then definitely use the harvester. It will help you clear mobs a lot quicker. Those were the essential artifact, and then also the harvester, which is a great choice for your 3rd slot. The first swap-in, or I would say an essential swap-in that you need, is the Gong of Weakening. This is so effective against bosses. I've talked about it a lot. It about triples the damage that you can output to a boss, and when you're using this in combination with the battle staff, you will literally be able to defeat a boss before the Gong of Weakening effect even runs out. So this is extremely important to have for boss fights if you want to be able to clear them 3 times faster. The next swap-in are the Boots of Swiftness, which is just gonna increase your movement speed, which can be very useful in between pockets of enemies. With cooldown enchantments, you will be able to keep up the Boots of Swiftness very often. So in that case, this would be a wonderful choice and would increase your speed by a pretty good amount over the course of a full dungeon run. The final swap-in that you can use is the Ironhide Amulet. This will increase your defense, and this is great in situations where you are struggling with survivability, and maybe you know that there are a lot of very tough mob packs or an enchanted mob pack. This can keep you up. You can also swap in any other artifacts that you may like, but these are the ones that I would recommend and would say are the most effective. But anyways, everybody, that's my showcase and guide of the spider build. I've already made 4 other builds in my Minecraft Dungeons Best Builds series, so if you haven't seen my other ones, I would definitely recommend that you check them out. They're really cool and really effective. Let me know what videos you would like to see next, or maybe if there are any builds that you would suggest. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and other than that, everybody, thank you all so much for watching. I will see you all in the next video. Peace out, everybody.